idea of telling people about the Bloomberg article wasn't to try and create another narrative, just so that that could become the theme. There was also an article yesterday, and Zero Hedge, don't know if you saw it, about the UK wanting to clamp down on cryptocurrencies. So that kind of happened at the same time that I came on here and spoke about the tether update. So I don't know that we can draw conclusions.
Now, what's the long and short of the tether update? I'm literally just getting on now, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Briefly, somebody at Bloomberg was contacted by Bitfinex's Tether's PR agency, and they said that they were already working on a story. A customer had come to them saying that he wasn't able to withdraw tethers. So obviously, management heard about it and then started frantically going through the withdrawals, see if there's anything outstanding. And there wasn't, but there was a sub-ticket that had been raised about 3 weeks prior from an account that was emailing support asking if it could send money into and therefore which bank account, because it wanted to do a $1 million withdrawal in tether. But to be clear, this user didn't have any tethers. They completed some KYC, I think, on Bitfinex and on tether, but at the time it wasn't the KYC that he completed wasn't sufficient, because it was only for corporate customers at that time, and he'd only done it as an individual. And then when he was talking to support, I don't know, I don't read the mind of the support guy, but I think that he just felt it wasn't a bona fide request, because he was just asking weird questions like, I've heard that it's really fishy what you're doing, and it's like Hawala system, and it just didn't feel like a bona fide request. And support ticket guy is kind of busy, he's got a lot on his plate, so it didn't feel like a bona fide request. But then this user, when it was looked in more deeply, looked like one of the had basically gone to Bloomberg to generate a story out of it and say, look, I can't withdraw tethers, and yet tethers are being printed in quotes every day. And then when it came back, found the ticket, looked up the name, looked on Twitter, because we have a list of all the people on Twitter that are retweeting this narrative, and it was an account that had been retweeting the Bitfinex narrative since the summer. And so, it just looked like a setup to get an article. And it's a powerful narrative, I understand, and I don't want to preempt or prejudge anything that Bloomberg are going to write. I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt when people say like it's going to be a FUD article or a hit piece. I don't think we should assume that. I mean, that's what we've seen so far, I think. I mean, it's just been, there are questions being raised. Well, yeah, you can say a question is being raised, but that is not proof. And if you're using, if somebody says to you, so when did you last beat your wife? Now questions are being raised about you being a wife beater. Let's talk about the expenses that you may have dealt a few months ago. And really the more serious allegation is being used to smuggle in a less serious allegation in order to get people's attention. I'm not saying that is what's happening, but I have to keep an open mind to all the possibilities. And the press are there, they've got their incentives. The press sign NDAs. I mean, journalists normally will sign NDAs with their bosses, so they can't pretend like they're completely neutral and unbiased. There is an editorial bias there, and they obviously do want to get advertising revenue. They want to make money. Their businesses like everybody else.
Yeah, no, I get that. Also, AT #57. Yeah, there's price action, but we're actually talking about the reason for it with someone who works with Bitfinex very closely. So thanks for your input there. And also, ChrisJ, thanks for explaining that to me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Goodbye.
10-7 held from yesterday. Let's see if it bounces here. I don't know. Might be another short time. Oh, nice buys. Okay, nice buys, Finex.
Yeah, on the chart you can see right now we're at support, some strong support. But yeah, let's see where we can see the bottom. Catch that, we should be fine.
Yeah, it's rather oversold on the 15-minute. The hourly, honestly, the hourly's pretty low right now. I mean, I could see the hourly touching down around 30, which would kind of fit the narrative for another leg down. The bounce is pretty strong here, though. Let's see if it has a little bit of continuation.
Is the article at Bloomberg up yet, or is it something that is just being discussed?
Chris has pulled back for a second. As far as I know, this is all based on the fact that Bloomberg contacted Bitfinex and asked them about it. Nothing's been published or written yet.
Yeah, nothing is up yet. It might not even go up today. It might go up today, So I guess there's a lot of uncertainty as to whether it'll go up today, when it'll go up, or how the details of the article will portray the tether situation.
I mean, it might not even go up at all. Literally, it could just be a call going, "Hey, we've heard this. What do you have to say?" And they're just trying to suss out whether or not there's a story there. To me, it sounds like there's not much of a story there. I think what I've seen recently is like all year, a lot of mainstream media printing shit like Bitcoin crashes. It goes up 30%, drops 5%, and all of a sudden it's a crash. But the funny thing is that by the time these dickheads actually get their articles out, the price has already rebounded to like all-time highs again. So everyone looks like an idiot. So what I've noticed is that these mainstream media, organizations are publishing less FUD pieces because they just look like retards every time. Hopefully Bloomberg is well aware of that. If they post a FUD piece about Tether and it ends out to be nothing, which obviously it is going to end up to be nothing, they're the ones that are going to be looking like the retards. So, in my opinion, it probably won't even get published in the first place.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Definitely might not even happen. So I guess we'll just keep an eye on it for now.
Viper, there was an article in SMH the other day. It was hilarious. It was, when Bitcoin a few days ago had that sort of drop from 11k. He sort of ran up to 11k, then dropped. And the headline said something like Bitcoin crashes 20% in like 1 hour. And then by the time it actually came out, the Bitcoin price was back at like 11k.
Yeah, this is exactly it. And then anyone reading these FUD pieces who haven't got into Bitcoin, they'll look at the price one day and go, "Oh, it's $8,000," and then they read a FUD piece going, "Bitcoin crashes," and then they go and check the price, and then all of a sudden it's 9,000, and then they read another one, and then they check the price, and it's 11,000. And it's fucking hilarious because they put out these pieces, and then people go and check the price just to see how much all their Bitcoin mates have lost, and the price is up. So these FUD pieces are becoming fewer and fewer with every one of these dips and then pumps.
It's very dishonest as well because in that article, it only talks about this 20% drop when it doesn't actually say anything about the fact that it went up from like 8k to 10 to 11k in like 2 days. Like it leaves out the part where it only lost like 6 hours worth of gains. Like that 20% was 6 hours of gains. Like what the fuck?
It's funny, dude.
It makes the reader think, like, if you're just like an average Joe reading it, you're thinking like, oh, fuck, Bitcoin's crashing. When it's fucking, it literally lost like 3 or 4 hours of gains. So stupid.
And it is, and it is frustrating, but at the end of the day, I think the majority of the people writing these articles are people that have been writing them for years and had an opportunity to get in, and they didn't, and they're feeling butthurt, and they want to fucking they want Bitcoin to crash so that they don't feel like a retard for not getting in and having an opportunity.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Yeah.
The problem is they're just looking like idiots every time they post one because it bounces back. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that's the perfect article to write. If you're a journalist and you want to get your name out, I mean, that's what you want to write. You want to write that piece, that scandalous piece, get some people following you because everybody's saying it's a bubble. Yeah.
They're fucking lazy. That's what they are.
Going back to this Bitfinex thing, it's actually hilarious. I read a lot of stupid articles from people like Bitfinex or Medium or even mainstream sort of journalism now, where they talk about tethers being generated out of thin air. I'm an institutional tether buyer, so I know that it's not actually coming out of thin air. Like, I'm one of the people who buys tether for US dollars. So to hear people say it's being there's no deposits and they must be generated out of thin air, when I read that, I just think that's so fucking hilarious. These guys have no idea what they're talking about, and they're saying these claims as if they know things.
Don't worry, no one in here believes that story.
We were also due a FUD event. It's been some time, so yeah.
The quality of the Bitfinex posts are degrading as well, so that's good news, I think.
That guy's got the earmarks of a attention-seeking loser, basically. I think he's only doing it for the attention. I don't think anyone's paying him. I don't think he's good enough for anyone to pay. He's just one of those people who just loves the attention.
Yeah, look at this very last post. It really shows how stupid it is. There's no logic anymore.
Eric, can you explain a bit how the process of buying tether works?
I'd rather not, without Bitfinex.
Two shoes. The reason why people buy tether, or the reason I'd want to buy it, is just for the sweet funding. You can get between 0.1 and 0.2% a day regularly. It's freaking crazy, and you compound that. You can double your money every year.
But basically, Tether is just like a bank account in Hong Kong, to be honest.
Well, why can't you do that just depositing directly to Bitfinex?
Well, you can, but with you deposit directly to Bitfinex, you're effectively buying Tether.
No, that's not correct.
No?
You only get Tether when you're withdrawing dollars from Bitfinex through Tether. When the dollars are on Bitfinex, it's still USD.
Yeah, no, yes, but it's it is, but you have Tether though. I mean, USD equals Tether. Tether equals USD.
You're both right in that it's the way it kind of works both ways. It's Tether when it's Tether, and it's USD when it's USD. It actually doesn't matter what it is at a certain time. The point is that it's quickly internal ledgers can change it from Tether to USD amongst the Tether ledger and the Bitfinex ledger. So it actually doesn't matter. It's once it gets converted to Tether though, it goes on the blockchain, and then the tethers are distributed as actual tethers. And then when they're withdrawn, the opposite happens. They're destroyed.
Yeah, the US dollars and the Tether, they both have a different bank account. Or I should say Bitfinex actually has to deposit money into the Tether bank account when you withdraw your US dollars into Tether dollars.
Wait, so what you guys are saying is new tethers are only printed when they get withdrawn from the exchange, not just by having the money on there.
Well, withdrawn from Bitfinex specifically, because an exchange like Kraken and Bittrex and Poloniex, they all use US dollar tether, but you can't withdraw those dollars from those accounts.
Yeah.
From those exchanges.
See, as far as I was aware, it was when if I deposit $1,000 worth of USD onto Bitfinex, $1,000 worth of tether will be created. Whether or not I choose to withdraw that or not, that tether is still created. Am I wrong?
Yeah, that's wrong. When you deposit US dollars on Bitfinex, there are US dollars in a bank account. If customers want to withdraw tethers to exchanges that accept tethers, then the tethers have to be created, or if there aren't new ones already existing in the hot wallet, then Tether has to issue some new ones, and Bitfinex needs to transfer over the wire from its bank account to Tether's bank account, and then it issues the tethers to the hot wallet, and that's assigned to the user to withdraw.
And ChrisJ, when if I just like deposit USD, if I buy some tethers, right, and then I send them to Bitfinex and then withdraw them to my bank account, so then Bitfinex burns those tethers effectively, yes?
No, it depends on the supply demand. So if there's so much demand like we've been seeing over the last few months, then they'll just get reused into the hot wallet. That actually happens for all the cryptos. So when you make a deposit into the Bitfinex exchange on any of the cryptos, it goes into a hot wallet to be used by another customer to make a withdrawal. Now, if the hot wallets get too big, then yes, they will be, in the case of the cryptos, sent back to the cold wallet. But in the case of Tether at the moment, because there's so much demand, then they just get recycled pretty quickly.
Okay, so there could be a point in time when there's more tethers in existence than there are USD, and if that happens, like obviously you'll leave them around for a little bit because someone's probably going to deposit money. But if it gets to the point where there's like a sizable overdraft, they just get burnt.
Yeah, that statement wasn't quite accurate. So you said if there's more tethers than there are USD, what you meant is like if there are so many tethers that you don't need them anymore, essentially.
Yeah.
They're not being used. Yeah, and in which case they'll be redeemed. And I've been asking the Tether team if we could do that, because if you can show a customer, quite publicly, although finance is very, very private thing. Nothing's more private than money really in life. But asking somebody to say publicly, yes, I've redeemed some tethers would be helpful.
Yeah. Is there any idea who this Bitfinex guy is yet?
No, and to be honest, like, so what? Like, we find out, and then what? I mean, unless it's part of some deeper conspiracy, I don't think it's relevant. I think it's kind of dangerous, right? Because people should be able to ask hard questions, and that's perfectly legitimate. And if you set a precedent where you try to sort of dock somebody just because they're asking hard questions, I think the reason it's coming up is because people think that he's making these statements in bad faith. I said last night that I'm not going to make that judgment straight away, because I think serious allegations should be taken seriously. And people that I respect have been coming to me over the last few weeks saying, what's going on, Chris? You've got a good reputation, and they're just using you, to make people think that everything's okay. And I said, well, look, I haven't seen any evidence of fraud. If the accusation is that they've got bad PR, they haven't updated their website, could have been more forthcoming about, who the principals of the business were. Okay. I accept that, but that's not the same as the more serious allegations. And then some of the more measured people have said, but I think the more serious allegations are just being used to smuggle in these less serious ones and to create this kind of storm in a teacup. Because you see the difference, right, from these chat rooms that we're in now to Twitter. They're very, very different. You don't hear many of these people coming on a microphone, just like you didn't with Bitcoin Unlimited. Like, you just didn't hear many people coming to the defense when it actually required going on a microphone.
And what about old PGP? Is he can? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, from their point of view, they would say, well, we'd fear it because we're up against a big opponent in the form of Bitfinex and Tether, and we don't want to put ourselves in jeopardy. I mean, we have no way of assessing what their resources and capabilities are. We don't know if it's somebody from a banking lobby, or whether it's somebody who is well financed, or it could just be a guy, that other people found to be sympathetic to their ideas, and they just started loosely coordinating. Could be any of those things, but that's all speculation. I mean, first of all, you have to deal with the allegations one by one. I said last night, I'm starting with the most serious first.
Yeah, old Adam Gerbers was on the Mumble the other day, and I haven't spoken to that cunt in ages. It was good to hear from him, but I played in the Bitfinex audio tape or the audio interview with that he did with you know how Flipper got in and there was that fucking big thing, and he was certain he knew who it was, and he reckoned he was just going to go confirm it. He was like, I know exactly who that is, and I'm going to get back to you with who it is. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes back with. I mean, it's Adam, so you know he could be wrong, but it'll be. I'm just interested. I'd love to dox him. I would fucking love it.
Chris, my problem with Bitfinex is that he is saying things that don't make sense on a market and logic perspective. He's saying unfactual things, like he's making insinuations about how the banking and funding works that is just fundamentally wrong. And because the average person doesn't know how banking works and how finance in general works, especially when it comes to how reserves and how you guys would operate something like Tether, which is quite a complex arrangement, he gets away with it. But in that interview with Flibber, he said some things that are just fundamentally wrong, like saying that he's insinuating that if the Bitcoin price goes up and the Tether supply goes up, that means that Tether's pumping it. That is absolutely not correct.
Yeah, it's a post hoc fallacy. Post hoc ergo propter hoc is quite used by lawyers. It means after this, therefore because of this. And just because you see something on a surface level doesn't mean that you can correlate causation behind the scenes. You need to have the whole picture. Same from Plato's cave, right? So you look at the shadows on the wall, but they're just 2 dimensions. In order to get to the 3-dimensional object, you need to go, in behind the actual object itself and see it. So the 2-dimensional object is a reduction of the 3-dimensional object that's being projected.
Well, even if you do look at it on the surface, though, he's still wrong. I mean, as Flibber pointed out during the interview, if fake tethers were being used to push up the price of Bitcoin, then it would be obvious in that at least Bitfinex would be trading at a massive premium, towards anyone else, any of the other exchanges. The simple fact is it's not. So even on the surface, it's fucking stupid.
So what's his win? What is his goal? I don't understand anymore.
Because he got butthurt and he wants blood out of Bitfinex.
Okay, so me personally, I understand everyone's entitled to their opinion. I don't personally think it matters whether he's got butthurt, whether he sold his coins or whatever. I think that what is true right now is that it's creating a mania and a panic. And to coin a phrase, the only thing to fear is fear itself. People are now fearful of the fear that's going around about it. And when you see some of the articles that are being published, journalists will often say, in order to kind of ease their position and equivocate, they'll say questions are being raised. Well, that's what you say. You say questions are being, because you don't want to state it categorically. I mean, they don't want to get sued for defamation. But what they can do is say that someone's raised questions. And that is a true statement. Someone has raised questions. But whether or not those questions are genuine, whether or not they're actually based on verifiable facts, whether or not we can get behind to the 3-dimensional object and not the 2-dimensional, shadows that are being projected on the wall, that's entirely separate. Because the people making these allegations don't have access to the raw data, they don't have access to the banking, they don't have access to the order books and so forth, which I now am having access to. And I went through them with Giancarlo initially on Saturday. Then I want to see for myself, for my own benefit, not for anybody else. It's not so that I can go out and say, it's okay, everybody, everything's fine, because that would be a trap. It would be a stupid thing to do. Then, there just has to be an independent audit in order for people to have confidence. I want to see it for myself. And I want to familiarize myself to it so that I can make myself helpful in some way in the situation. And there was a lot of information to go through. So when people ask me questions, I don't just want to repeat what somebody else in the company has told me, because then I'm just a repeater signal. I'm not actually verifying the facts with my own eyes. And it's dense. There's a lot of data points to go through. But the bank accounts that I was witnessing looked very genuine to me.
Yeah, well, most of his posts are complete bullshit. So is he just spreading fear to manipulate the price down?
I think right now, if you take a step back and look at what's happening with Coinbase and the IRS and the UK government and the Chinese government before this, when that whole FUD was happening, I think that, states want to have access to these databases on these exchanges. That's the honeypot for them, especially for like tax purposes, and also I think for law enforcement purposes. There's a perception that crypto is being used more broadly, even if the exchanges themselves are not complicit in this. That cryptocurrencies present a risk, and you want to kill the kitten before it becomes a lion, right? And so they think, okay, whilst this thing is getting big and it's getting all this mainstream attention, let's act now and let's take action. So if you can get access to today's space, you can raise enough questions that people, begin this kind of rumor mill, then, maybe you could get some articles, you could do things on the back end as well. So as well as, the social media front, you can also be writing to regulators saying, look, all the public, I'm very afraid as a member of the public, and I've invested and I might lose lots of money. Then maybe you can push this thing, because regulators and governments move very, very slowly. It's a wheel that is very heavy, but it grinds finely. And I can imagine somebody that says, okay, I've had enough of this, I want things to be, regulated above board, might be frustrated by that slow moving machine, and maybe want to expedite that process in some way. But it's speculation, and again, we're veering into ad hominem, because you're making assumptions and speculations about somebody's motives, which aren't entirely irrelevant, but that's not the order of operations that needs to be gone through. Looking through the trustee agreement right now, the one that was redacted from the Friedman report and the memo back in September, I'm going through these things. It's going to take me some time to get my bearings, to work everything out, and then I have to independently get some advice from experts to make sure that I understand what I'm looking at and understand it fully. I'll probably actually get a law firm in Canada to go through and give me some authoritative statement on the particulars of the trustee agreement.
I think that there's one area that people can have a legitimate concern about, and that is not that the banking or their bank accounts, unlike what Bitfinex is saying, not that they don't have the money, it's that the money can be potentially seized, or the US government or any other government could potentially step in and block access to that money, or freeze accounts and things like that. I think that's probably the only thing that you could legitimately have concerns about when it comes to Tether, with knowing what's out there in the general public. That's the only, I think, conclusion, or if you do a risk analysis, that's really the only thing that is legitimately a risk.
That's a very intelligent statement. I think I've mentioned it before on my Twitter, and it's something that Carl Torpy was saying, and it was something that another gentleman was saying on Twitter. I think I retweeted both of them. That is my risk assessment as well.
And let's not forget that the banks actually still use fractional reserve lending, so that's the real risk.
The irony.
Yeah.
So,
but so
are
I
the
still
tether
think
banks... Sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, since the U.S. has stricter banking regulations than the rest of the world mostly, so are the tether banks, in the U.S., since they deal U.S. dollars and separate from Bitfinex, which are, I don't know, in Europe, Asia. So if Tether was to get seized, would Bitfinex still be operable?
I don't know the answer to that question right now.
An argument can be made, and I know this is a poor argument, and a lot of people will probably scream at me for this. Technically, Tether itself does not need to be backed by anything, the same way that Bitcoin does not need to be backed by something. That's not to say that that's how it would play out. I think it wouldn't play out that way, because Tether was created to be pegged to the US dollar, whereas Bitcoin was not. But if the money is being used as a medium to arbitrage between several exchanges, the largest exchanges, then that's its purpose, and that can represent wealth. But the fact that it's not backed by anything is problematic, but that's just theoretical, because Bitcoin is also not backed.
The white paper spelled it out quite clearly. So that is the whole point, is that for every tether that's issued, there is a corresponding dollar in a bank account. I think that Tether does need to be tested. This is an opportunity right now to just go through everything and do a full audit of the whole system. Because if there is an attack vector, let's say, hypothetically, where someone can post a lot on social media and show correlation between price increasing in a bull rally and Tether's issuing, that also is a risk model. In fact, I believe in the Tether white paper, one of the risk models was there is a threat where a state actor can step in and intervene with banking relationships, right? So when you do tethering, or when you do this sort of backing to dollars, this can work on a small scale quite well. But when you have rapid growth and you start dealing with the kind of numbers we're dealing with now, and we're up to something like 800 million or more, then it actually can become a problem. And that is a test. And it's not just a test for Tether, it's a test for a lot of the other competing products as well. So these tests should be, and these critics, frankly, should be seen as an opportunity, not a challenge, because these critics will work very, very hard for you. They will work tirelessly. And more importantly, they will work for you for free, right? He will put out a tweet every 6 minutes. And I'm trying to persuade the team internally, saying, this guy is probably the best employee that these two firms have ever had. It's not necessarily something that goes over well, as you might imagine, but that's how I see it. And the system has to be anti-fragile, it has to be resilient, and security is a process that never ends. You always are in the process. It's a diffuse responsibility. Everyone has it. Everyone from the office junior should be able to call out the CEO because he sees poor OPSEC or something, right? That is everyone's responsibility. And if there is a threat, and if there's a systemic threat like the one you raised very intelligently, where I've heard reasonable people saying, like Greg Seplack, well, it's not that necessarily I think it's fraud. It's just that I see it as a systemic risk because so many businesses depend on it and the government could intervene. Well, yes, that was iterated in the white paper as I understood it. That's my interpretation of it. I don't disagree with that statement. So now we have to deal with it. But it's happened because the industry has grown so rapidly and so many people have got in. And what can you do? I mean, you can't manipulate it. You can't say, don't buy Bitcoin. Please don't buy it. I mean, I think Sean Carlo said last night on here that he would welcome competition. That would actually be a good thing right now for Tether, is that it would have competition.
Yeah, I don't understand the narrative that tethers would be used to pump Bitcoin prices when most are actually on altcoin exchanges, probably buying up altcoins.
Yeah, there's a lot of transactions to go through, and I haven't even started, looking at the trading engine and the logs, and that's going to be a whole world of pain. I may choose not to. I mean, I may choose to get so far, and I've sent out invitations to other people in the industry for participation, because nothing I say can really be relied on by the general public, because I work for IFNX, and so I'm doing this for me. But what I can do is try to be a facilitator in this process, right? If there are other people that can help restore confidence to the market by going through the data that I've gone through, if I can help to build those connections and facilitate that and speed that up, because, the other issue, the same Bitfinex right now has the same problem that Poloniex reported having back, I think, in July, when they were getting all kinds of support issues and DDoSing. And I think you might remember there was actually a big crash on one of the days because their site was going down at the time. They said it's because we've grown too quickly and we don't have the staffing, right? And so it's a lot of it in there is just about keeping on top of the action items and making sure that things get done. If I can do that and I can be a facilitator in that way, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do this for free. Like, I haven't invoiced IFNX, just between us, since August, because frankly, what was I doing? I was hanging out in here and I was forwarding ticket requests. So I'm going to go through the lawyer because they gave me some shares. I think I mentioned it to you guys before, but I was reluctant to accept them, and I'm going to go through with him on the details. I might choose to give them back. I may choose to give some back. I just want to be absolutely clear about what my compensation is. As far as I'm concerned, I work for IFNX. I want that distinction to be made clear. As I said just now, this is an opportunity to go through and reassess everything and reorder everything and make sure that everything is right. And I'm happy to do this part for free. I don't particularly want compensation. If you guys need reassurances, if I can facilitate that in some way for what it's worth, I'm happy to do that for free.
I think you should be getting compensation, mate. You're doing a job. You're putting time in. You deserve to get something back from it. I mean, Bitfinex is making profit off the users. They're getting compensation, so why shouldn't you get a taste?
No, I just mean for like the Tether stuff. Like, yeah, for IFNX stuff, yeah, sure. But like with the Tether thing, because it's bleeding into the role that I have at IFNX, like, I want things to be very demarcated. That's how I like segregation in my life.
Yeah.
I OPSEC and everything. I just want things to be clear. I want a job at iFinex. That's what I signed up for. That's what I want to stick to. And I want to go through any areas that are grey, and I want to clear those up. And that's the opportunity that I'm talking about.
But your job, like, and you're the. I always thought you're like the community manager, or like. What is your? Is that
community,
your?
Yeah, community liaison officer was like one word, but that sounded a little bit pompous to me. So community manager is a job title that is the most common one. Let's go with that one.
Well, mate, you're at work. You know, even though you enjoy your job, even though you love coming in here, and you would have done it for free anyway. Doesn't matter if you enjoy your job. It doesn't mean you're not working. You still should be getting paid.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. But I'm happy, like I said before, with if I've earned any money that I believe goes above and beyond the value that I've contributed, I'm happy to donate that to, causes within the community, or hand it over to somebody that you want to donate it to. There are lots of really, really good open source projects in this space that just aren't getting the kind of funding that they need. Like, they really are. Like, those projects where you look at it and you go, damn it, why is this a static web page and it hasn't been, the Git repo hasn't been updated in a year? Why didn't this guy get the runway, but then this other startup ended up like raising tens of millions of dollars in an ICO and hasn't done anything?
Yeah, no, fair enough. Hey, just another question though. I don't know if you can answer this, but is there any word on ETHFinex? Is that still even happening?
Yeah, it is. I'm not in those chat rooms though. I'm not looking or keeping in touch with what they're doing.
Better hurry up and pump my fund for that, man.
No pumping, thank you.
No, that'll be added to ETHFinex, but yeah, ETHFinex is about unlistable tokens, like
NGR,
unsavory, but yeah.
And when these shitcoins, like, because 2 shitcoins got added to Finex, like, is that just when ETHFinex comes, are they going to get pulled off of Bitfinex and chucked on there, or are they going to stay on this on Bitfinex, or is that?
I don't know. Giancarlo was talking about it last night. I haven't actually been paying attention to the markets that have been added, but I think he did talk about it last night. He's in here right now. I don't know if he's able to come on voice.
I don't think I've ever heard him talk. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, he has been in. You guys talked quite a while back. Yeah, there it is. He's posted the link to ETHFinex.
So first thing, ETHFinex is live. It's just a beta version, but everybody can connect to it and check it out. The username and the password is going to be the same as the one in Bitfinex. So feel free to check it out and send us your impressions about it.
Cool.
And secondly, all the ERC20 tokens that will not develop their own proprietary blockchain will be moved to ETHFinex.
I changed my 2FA on Bitfinex today. I deactivated it and then re-added it to. I just wanted to change up my keys. Does that mean that I'd have to use my old 2FA in ETHFinex, or do they keep updated with each other?
No. They update with each other.
Cool. Thank you.
Chris, going back to one of the things you mentioned, do you find it strange that we're talking about systematic risk with tethers? I don't see that any different to the same risk that Kraken or Bitstamp have with governments seizing their USD deposits. So I don't see tethers being unique in that regard, in that I don't see them as a bigger risk than... we've seen it with BTC and with some other, even with Mt. Gox, some coins were seized, or some funds were seized. What are your thoughts on that? Because I see that as really, it's every Bitcoin exchange has that same systematic risk. It's not unique to Bitfinex.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they would, but it wouldn't be a domino effect, I don't think. Like the enforcement agencies or whoever would have to go in one by one and they would have to be a coordinated thing. Whereas I guess the theory is that if you take out Tether, then all, Bittrex, Poloniex, Binance, all the ones that use it, that would be the theory, I guess, the difference. And also the other thing that I've found now that I'm talking to banking partners and different people, payment processors, is that now I have first-hand account that Bitfinex was not the only exchange that was having banking issues, because that was one of the narratives as well back in March. Obviously, we know about OKCoin, and I can't say, and even if I could, I wouldn't, because I don't think it would be very fair to those business people. But it wasn't the only one that was having a problem. I think right now what I'm getting from the people that I'm talking to is that there is a bit of a banking crisis internally. The banks don't trust each other, especially on an international scale, and these are commercial disagreements that they have with one another, not legal. We're not actually in legal territory right now. We're in political PR territory. That can, of course, turn very quickly into something legal. But it sounds like the banks don't trust each other. The same with the music industry, Napster, the film business, and BitTorrent. But the difference is that the music industry and the film industry was selling packages, right? They were selling boxes with art on the front and CDs, and then they would reissue collectible editions and those kinds of product offerings. And there was a way of going around the middleman. In this case, you have a legacy finance system that has the network effect. You have Bitcoin, which had an unanticipated grassroots network effect that is fast growing. And it's interesting to watch the analogies play out. It's interesting to actually talk to these people firsthand. I've never spoken to the CEO of a bank before in my life, and I have now. And just talking to these people, and normally when I remember speaking to Isabella Kaminska, right, at the FT, this was years ago, and it was when the whole Santander scandal was going down, where they'd found evidence of manipulation and fraud internally. And I said, do you know who these people are? Like, what are their names? And she got really angry with me. She's like, what do you want, a witch hunt? I can't tell you their names. They're never going to work again. They're going to be suitably punished. And how the tables have turned, eh? Like, you think about it, and if you work for a financial broadsheet, yeah, like you're there. I mean, I don't necessarily know you're there to maintain the status quo, but a lot of your bread and butter in writing in finance has been about the legacy system. When something new comes along, and a lot of these technologists come in and they sound like they're trying to be economists, and the economists get all put out because they feel like, well, you're an engineer, you're not an economist. Why are you speaking about matters of economics? Well, because I'm putting it into the code. It's programmable money, and I'm programming my money. And the economist said, but you don't know anything about this. You haven't read all these papers. You didn't go to university. You didn't study my subject. And I think, if you're a journalist and you're out there, yeah, you're looking at the financial system, but I also think that to some degree, you're entrenched in that. You're part of that status quo. That some of this newfangled stuff could be quite threatening, particularly if you don't understand it.
Yeah. Hey, just sorry to interrupt. Just while I've got the might of the ear of Giancarlo, ETHFinex is showing a bad gateway 502 error, Cloudflare error.
Yeah, there's some DDoSing going on right now.
Yeah. I just thought I'd give the heads up. All good.
ChrisJ, I was wondering, maybe you could relay a message to PGP, which states, "No homo, we miss you."
I will do. Thanks.
Yeah, is PGP ever coming back? He used to love hanging out with the boys.
Yeah, he'll be back.
Make it. Yeah, come on. God.
Let's get some drinks on in here. We'll have a fucking little party, just like the old days.
Oh, so yesterday there was a question. I don't know who asked it, but I had some clarification. So the question was, why did Tether switch up its operations on the hack on the 19th of November, such that a new address was used, the one that I'll post in just a moment, instead of the regular hot wallet addresses that are used. So let me send you those addresses now.
Hey, can you wait a second? I'll PM the guy who asked that.
Great, thanks.
Just while we're waiting, ChrisJ, any updates on the dude who stole some of the tethers?
Yeah, so there's a recording up on YouTube for last night, me going through the details.
Did we catch him?
No. But there are some good leads. We're going to write a report for law enforcement. We don't have a crime number or anything like that. That's normally done between Bjorn and me. But because there wasn't, a victim in the sense of a customer being left out of pocket, that wasn't, you know, with everything else that's been going on, that just wasn't a priority. But ordinarily, yes, you go straight to law enforcement and say customer funds been stolen, and I don't actually know if we get crime numbers. I can check with Bjorn, but I didn't receive one for the August 16 hack.
Because what happens if, like, you got him, Momo?
No, he's not around. So answer it, and I'll make sure he finds out.
Okay, so this needs clarifying. The wallet address beginning 3BD I just posted there, that's the Tether hot wallet. That's a 1 of 1. It's in a P2SH address beginning with 3, but it's only requires one signature in order to authenticate. And the private key is held on the server, but it is encrypted. However, when it is decrypted, obviously it's taken into memory. In memory, it's unencrypted. So that would be where we could, that would suggest that the hacker would have got the key from memory. Then the Tether hacker address was the 310K. And I think that was the confusion last night, was that the 310K was a Tether address. It was not. It was an address set up by the hacker.
So what happens if I withdraw some Tether to my like personal wallet on my computer, or someone sends me those Tethers and it was one of the dodgy ones, and I try and claim that later? Does that just mean I get like, I just don't get my money, or how are you guys going to handle that?
Yeah, so the way that was handled was that when the hack was discovered, the Omni team and the Tether team got together. I wasn't actually in on that call, but that it did happen. And they agreed to not announce anything about the hack. Omni team went off and made a protocol, reported the theft, and exchanges came together. So, well, how much is it? What's happened? They gave them the details, and the exchanges agreed to accept a patch, which effectively froze the coins in the hacker's address once he'd sent them out from the 310K address to the 16 address, the single signature address. So those coins can't move.
Oh, so they're locked now.
Yeah, they're locked, and another update is coming out that will actually patch this longer term as well, so that, you know, if this happens in the future, there'll be tools at their disposal to be able to use.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was a good outcome, I think, because I don't think he ended up stealing anything in the end.
Yeah, the crime was against Tether itself. I mean, there was a crime committed. I mean, you're not allowed to hack into servers. That is actually a criminal offense. But no funds were lost. Yeah, problem fixed Vitalik style, but Tether never claimed to be, you know, unstoppable applications and, you know, decentralize all the things. And
yeah, that's fair.
Oh, look, private keys fall into the wrong hands all the time. I don't think it's a unique problem with Tether. I think it's, as with most things Bitcoin related or crypto related, it's usually unhackable, but the weakness is the handling of the information, such as private keys and passwords, etc.
So, ChrisJ, are there any new features or anything that you can talk about at the moment? Anything coming out in the pipeline or anything?
Well, we really wanted to do SegWit addresses for Bitfinex, and that's just unfortunately been pushed by the wayside. It was due to come out like 2 weeks ago, but, you know, Paolo got pulled on to other things, and the walleting is obviously only authorized for, you know, a select few. So yeah, but that's what I want to try and get done next.
Because yeah, Coinbase is doing SegWit addresses too, aren't they now?
Yeah,
that's going to be really good for minimizing the block size.
I've got a feature request of my own, actually, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the trades I do, and I think a lot of other people probably do, is, say for example, I want to borrow Bitcoin, for example, but I want to actually be able to send the Bitcoin. So what I would usually do is I'd do a margin sell and a exchange buy at the same time, basically buy my own order, and that replicates borrowing Bitcoin, but actually having possession of the Bitcoin rather than it being in a position, or rather than it being in a funding position, which when you've got funding, it doesn't do anything unless you've got it in a position. So it'd be cool to be able to use your funding. So if you borrow 10 Bitcoins on funding and you're paying interest on it, it would be cool to have a way of using that Bitcoin, so you could transfer it or do whatever, as long as you keep the right balances in the rest of your wallet, so that you don't sort of, so there's no chance that you could steal any funds or anything like that.
No, I don't think that would work, because all the funds have to be strictly segregated in order for the funding model to work.
Right, okay.
I think there are regulations that exist around that as well, so I don't think that would be possible. The same with the CST tokens, because people have asked about that as well, if they could use the Bitcoins that they put into the chain split tokens, and it's not good accounting practice to do that. It's a shame, because a lot of people are locked right now into CSTs and feel like they can't get out until the contract expiry, but that's how it is with any of these kind of contracts. You have to wait for a settlement.
Yeah, I understand.
And what's going to happen to these bits that went into the speaking of chain split tokens? What's going to happen with the boys who went into the what's it called, SegWit 2x? They just won't get anything, will they? Because there was no token.
Not yet, no.
That's epic. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Although
that's the game.
If SegWit 2x does get revived, I assume the token will remain for the new iteration of it.
No, it can't. It can't, because if it does get revived, they'll need another snapshot. So you need to be wherever the Bitcoins are at that moment. You know what I mean?
I do. I'm just trying to work it out in my head if that's how it would work. I think you're right.
Well, it has to, because if SegWit 2x gets revived, they'll snapshot again. So say they snapshotted now, and I've got 40 Bitcoins or 50. Say I've got 100 Bitcoins on Bitfinex, right? If they snapshotted now, like that, it would be snapshotting of like what's on the blockchain now. So you couldn't do it from back then,
Yeah. But if they split all the tokens already, then as long as they don't split them again, those old tokens should still be. Because
yeah.
I guess the only thing is no new Bitcoins have come in, but they have because they're generated every 10 minutes or so.
No, you're right.